Hello and welcome to another installment of our interview series, Making the Right Moves. We're talking to women who are successfully funding their business. We'll talk to them about how they're doing it, the lessons they're learning along the way, and the tips they have to share, not only about funding, but about business operations in general. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Nerissa Golden, all the way from Montserrat. Welcome, Nerissa. Nerissa is a CEO of Goldenmedia LLC. It's a branding company that manages lifestyle, education, and news brands, including Discover Montserrat, Truly Caribbean, and Emerald Vibes TV. You'll have to tell us a little bit about that, Nerissa. An award-winning author of inspirational business and romance books, Nerissa believes that everyone's unique journey is a foundation on which a legacy can be built. Most exciting, she has a new project, the Visibility Project Incubator, which teaches high-performance women to go from invisible to visible without compromising their values and their authenticity. So welcome again, Nerissa, to this interview.
It's good to be here.
I'm so happy to talk to you. I remember we connected on LinkedIn perhaps about a year ago, and
Yes.
I've been following you since. I've been very impressed by what you're doing in Montserrat, and you'll have to talk a little bit about that as well, in addition to just how you started your business and how you're funding it. So first question is obviously, what led you to start Goldenmedia LLC?
Well, years ago, God told me I was always going to be in the good news business, And he said, the good news business. As a child, my goal always was to be an author. Since I was about 5, I knew I wanted to see my names on books. And then around 10 or 11, I discovered Bryant Gumbel on the Today Show. And I said, oh, I want to do this. I want to be on TV doing the news. And that eventually led right after high school. I graduated at 15, different jobs. And then I took the plunge and I called up the local TV production company. And I said, I want to be on the news. And they literally they were looking for someone at the time when they gave me the job. That led to eventually working for the newspaper, learning how to write. And I went off to the university and studied communications. The journey to the business, it's been a fun one because I never quite feel like I'm working, which is
That's a good sign.
Which is a bad thing sometimes, because then it means you don't always get the business side of it right. But it just sort of evolved over the years as I transitioned, got married, traveled, eventually got divorced. And so Goldenmedia LLC is the latest version of it, but I've been using the Goldenmedia brand since about 2000. And it's just been a fun journey, learning how to tell good stories, how to help my clients become more visible in whatever area they're trying to do, and also to put my own stories out there. As you see, I write different things. I'm passionate about us as Caribbean people showing up in a variety of ways, and I'm exploring that right now even more.
Great, excellent. So how have you been funding your business? Have you bootstrapped it? Tell us a little bit about that.
It's been straight up bootstrapping from jump. And it's funny, after we connected over this, you made me think about that process and that journey. And I realized that I've always had the knack, even before I became an entrepreneur, to get people to give me their money. And I'm like, I didn't know that was a skill then, but I just knew that I had a way of being able to sell people on this vision, this idea I had, and how impactful it would be, if not for the next person, for the community or whatever I was doing at the time. Whether I had a good strategy or whatever, that's another story, but I was able to get money from them, and that's how it started. And then over the years, as I evolved, that turned into corporate sponsorships. for young entrepreneurs, conferences, government grants to do training programs. It's just evolved over time. And that's really how I've been able to have funded it. I've never taken a business loan or any equity or other things like that.
That's very interesting. So what are some of the skills? You said you're very good at sort of getting people to give you money. Is there a particular approach? Because a number of female entrepreneurs I know, when they're starting out, of course, you know this very well because you advise companies, it's a struggle. Yes, you might use your own funds and you might ask, for a loan from family, but still there's a need for ongoing working capital and so on to start scaling that business once you've launched it. And so you mentioned grants, you mentioned sponsorships, which I think are a little creative because you want to do activities under the auspices of the company. And then you reach out to the private sector to help. A lot of entrepreneurs would perhaps not have thought about that. So what's some of the strategies that you've used to convince grant makers and corporates to actually fund your activities in the business?
Okay, so in the early years, especially when I was very focused on entrepreneurship, the goal was literally to show companies how they needed to connect with, whether it's in that time, 20 years ago, it was young entrepreneurs. So whether it's a tech company, a bank, or whatever facility, I always targeted brands that I knew that young people would be a solid market for them. So having all of these young people, 100, 200 young people in a room, and being able to say, hey, look, talk to them about what you're doing. So it was being able to find the right organization that would align with whatever initiative I was working on at the time. And it was varied. It was film festivals, it was entrepreneurship stuff, whatever I was doing, whether it was entertainment stuff, it was just about being able to really research the brand and then see, okay, would this be a good fit for the product? And what would the benefits be? It was always about showing that brand what the benefits would be of being aligned with whatever my initiative was.
So it's basically making sure that the brand is aligned with your mission, or your mission is aligned with the brand, and then basically showing them what's in it for them.
Always.
Yeah.
Because I was also very, I wasn't quite, I suppose you would call it. I was ambitious, I was creative, but I also had principles. So I wasn't necessarily going after big alcoholic brands or things that had a certain imagery, because I knew the market of the people I was communicating with were probably a lot more traditional in some instances. So I just tried to, really just talk up a good game to the people that I thought would really benefit from the association, and just build those relationships. And I've been lucky that, they've said yes.
So in terms of where you've been now in terms of financing the company, do you contemplate using funding to scale, or do you contemplate using the same approach where you're sort of bootstrapping? Reason I say that is because I recently interviewed a business in Belize, and they are a BPO company. I think the only one in Belize. They're 10 years old, and they're bootstrapped since inception. They just plug the profits back into the company. And now they're thinking of contemplating a commercial bank loan, but they're like, let's be very careful about the terms and all those things. So it's possible to bootstrap endlessly if you are very disciplined about plugging profits back into the company. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, because of where we want to go next, I do think I have been thinking about it, having that conversation with, is it that I need a partner? Is it that I need a commercial loan? That sort of thing. So that's because because we do want to start creating more content, Caribbean content, whether it's movies, different sort of dramas and things like that, I need to scale really fast, because one of the challenges I've recognized, especially in the media industry, is that it takes a lot of people a long time to produce a product, simply because they are bootstrapping. So they've got to go work, then they've got to save that money, then they've got to write their script, then they going back and forth. So it could take years for an idea to go from story to, to final, to launch, to premiere. And I really want to cut down that space so that we can more rapidly produce content and have it released. And that I wouldn't be able to do on my own. So it's definitely where I'm heading now.
Would you contemplate some kind of investment? In other words, would you contemplate an investor who says, hey, Nerissa, I believe in what you're doing. I'll kick in X amount as a loan or as a convertible note or something. Would you contemplate, if you could find somebody of like mind?
Yes,
would you contemplate that?
I would. I am, because I've also set up a US company, hopefully to be able to attract some other investors on that side as well, for that same reason, because I just know where I need to go. I can't do it alone. And the model has worked for me in keeping my system small, but because we do want to do much more bigger things in the next 5 years or so, 5 to 10 years, I won't be able to do it alone. I wouldn't want to anyway, just because the risk is going to be a little bit more, and it'll be good to have some other voices in the room being able to offer some support. And again, if they have the same vision, I don't see why it can't work out.
So interesting. So then, just for benefit of who's listening, so you're basically doing a couple of things. You have clients who you do branding for, and then you have your own projects that are media related, right?
Yeah.
Everything from radio programs to producing content, writing scripts for films, et cetera, and then you have your books. Have I covered the range, or am I missing something?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Working for clients allows me to do my stuff.
I see. So your real passion is film.
It would be content creation
and content creation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've just been blessed that I actually do get to do fun projects for clients. We just did one for UNICEF, where we got to write a short radio drama. That's coming up. So I love it when my personal passions align with the clients. That's even better for me. Then I'm in my zone. So that would really be ideally what I would love to do, is literally just be producing lots of Caribbean content, which is why when the business was really started, I was focused initially on supporting filmmakers, anybody in the entertainment industry, especially in the Eastern Caribbean. I was helping them, get their publicity out and things like that. But at the same time, I was also learning about how the industry works in the region, what was happening globally, and what we could also learn about how we could improve it. So it's now that I've spent the time supporting other people, I definitely want to step more to the front to be the content creator and putting more of our own work out there, our branded work.
That's interesting. So tell us a little bit about the UNICEF project. Is it going to be released soon, or what's the story?
Yeah, actually in the next couple, by time this airs, it'll probably be on air in Montserrat. It'll also be aired in Antigua, and then we're going to drop the whole series on its 8 episodes on a podcast. And
what's the content?
It was actually designed for parents of young children between the ages of 2 and 4 who are having challenges with discipline. The series is called Raising Zoe, and it's about a single mom trying to raise Zoe, and also and she has the benefit of her mom, who is able to give her some guidance, even though the mom, when she was younger, she wasn't exactly the best parent, but she's learned a thing or two. And so now it's, it's like a multi-generational story about how they're navigating raising children in today's world.
And of course, you wrote the script.
Yes, I did. Thankfully, they're very short, so they're going to be an average of 2 minutes each episode.
Okay.
But it definitely was fun to produce and to try to get that message in a very short, time span. And I am actually now considering that for another story idea I wanted to do for a while. I was like, why didn't I ever think about just doing a radio drama? So I'm definitely working on that, because again, we can just put them all on podcasts. You don't actually have to have a radio station that's playing them. Yeah.
Sure. So let me ask you something. I know that you're not originally from Montserrat. So how did you end up in Montserrat?
I am actually originally from
Montserrat.
Montserrat.
You are okay, but your family's in another island, right?
In Martin. Yeah. Originally, my family's from Montserrat. We left when I was about 5.
Okay.
And my father's a minister, and we traveled the region. So we've lived a couple places. But about, I guess this year is going to make 14 years or so, I returned with my children after my divorce, and just, put things back together for us. And it's just been a blessing to be home, and I love it. And while what's been beautiful is that, and people are always asking me, how are you able to do what you do from here? Because the population is less than 5,000 people. And it's really about leveraging media, which is what I do, and telling a story that's bigger than the location. And then also just taking the time to connect, the same way that you and I connected, and just getting to know people. I spend a lot of time on social, just people watching and listening. I love to read. I love to see what people are doing. I get excited when I see Caribbean women and men, of course, just doing amazing things. Because when I first got into entrepreneurship, the space, it was empty. There was nobody. So my first thing was writing about entrepreneurship, what I was learning, because there was nothing there. So that allowed me to be part of that early development and the conversations around entrepreneurship across the region. And I try to maintain those relationships and then also stay current.
Great. So this has been a very interesting conversation up to this point, in the sense that you're doing a lot of things. You're firmly in the creative space, which is great. And you're showing that you can be in a small environment, but have a big impact, right?
Right.
So what are some of the challenges that you faced along the way? Not only in terms of perhaps getting funding, but just operationally running a business, particularly in a small environment such as Montserrat. What are some of the challenges you faced?
First, just resource. That was always the main one. And true, I was raising my 4 children by myself. So time was the biggest resource that I had. Working a full-time government job and trying to balance that was a challenge. So learning to ask for help was probably one of the early lessons, and I still struggle with it sometimes, honestly, to ask for help. And then in recent years is getting to the point of just admitting I need a team. There are people, of course, that I used over the years, so I kind of knew exactly where I would go if I was ready to build a team. And it was just to make the commitment now to actually say, hey, I need your help, and I'm going to need it, for longer than just 2 weeks.
I think one of the challenges, and this is linked to financing, is the whole issue of getting a team and timing, right? Because you need a certain amount of cash flow to support a team, particularly if you're talking about full-time people or even part-time people. And then you have to figure out which members of the team are most important to bring on when. And so you have a circular thing around financing and hiring, because you need funding to hire, but if you don't hire, you can't scale to make the funds. So it's the classic dilemma for entrepreneurs on the whole, but also I think for women in particular, who, as you said, rightly so, it's very tough to really acknowledge that you need help. I mean, I'm guilty of the same thing. You think you can run the whole business alone, and then you realize, whoa, wait a minute.
Mhm.
So
I did that for a lot of years. Whether it was building the website, doing all the content, the sales, the marketing. And one of the blessings that I have with my children, because now even though they're away at school, they're very media savvy. That could come from them,
their mom.
dragging them everywhere behind me.
Yes.
So now my son can do all the web design. And it's so funny
Good.
because there are days when I'm still like, oh, let me go do this. And I was like, wait a minute, why am I doing this? Could you help me? So I am still learning that I can actually, give them an assignment. What that means now, though, is that I actually have to plan because they
Yes.
have their own lives. So now it has forced me to have to be more structured, to actually think further ahead, because I need to now make sure that the rest of the team is delivering what they need to do, in time. One of the things that had to shift as well for me is not just doing project-based work, but trying to get more recurring clients, because then I
Yes.
could better analyze what my budget is going to be going forward, and then make those decisions about committing and hiring staff accordingly.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So I'm assuming you subcontract as needed, or do you have permanent?
Right now, I subcontract as needed. The only permanent people I would say would be a couple of my kids who are permanently on call. But other than that, I subcontract when I need. I'm not up there. Some things that I realize I just don't like to do. And I was like, I don't have to do it actually. I could get somebody else to do that. And it's totally changed my life. Hiring somebody just to do the nitty-gritty of follow-ups and stuff like that.
But also you have to think about, for that, you have to think about getting the right people who are committed, the quality, because of course you need to protect your brand, right?
Right.
So in the hiring process, you have to be very careful about who you get. And this is going to dovetail now into networking, the issue about networking. I want you to address that a little bit, because that, again, not only links up to operations and how to run your business well with help, but it also dovetails into financing, meaning that a lot of women, I think, sometimes are a little bit hesitant to network and network well. Men normally this is in their DNA, I think. They go out for drinks, they meet people on a dime, whereas many women tend to shy away from that. So could you talk about how you've done it? Because it's led you obviously to sponsorships and other things. So could you talk a little bit about that?
I'm just interested in people. I'm interested in what people are doing. So if you just go out seeking to get to know people and understand what their world is like, or if it's on social media, you see someone and he's like, oh, that's fascinating. I may not know the person, but I will say, wow, that's fascinating. Even if it's like, oh, wow, that's a brilliant color that you're wearing. Just being willing to uplift somebody else and make that connection is how it starts for me. I'm not necessarily seeking anything when I go to meet somebody. I just literally want to know, how do you do what you do? And that inquisitiveness often, I guess, leads to relationships. I'm like, oh, really? I can help you with that. Or usually it's, I know someone who can help you with that. Often I'm not the answer, but because I connect with people, I say, oh, you know what? I know this woman in Jamaica who does that. She might be able to, I know she'd be willing to have a conversation with you just to, you can brainstorm, get some ideas about how to do, whatever. So it's just about being inquisitive, wanting to support and help other people. And that is what has opened the doors for me. It's literally, how do I serve others? And at some point, somebody said, hey, Nerissa, how can I help you? And in fact, it's always been the biggest challenge, is that I often didn't reciprocate and say, hey, this is what I need from you, because I was always just about the service, about the giving, but receiving is also part of that. So if you focus on the giving, then the opportunity to receive comes. You'll be able to, whether it's make your pitch or ask, to be someone to be your mentor, that sort of thing.
That's very, very important, because certainly when it comes to things like equity financing and so on, those relationships are or any kind of investment, or even a bank loan, Women sometimes don't have the relationships with bankers, and so as a result, they're not seen as serious, or their application is thrown aside. So one of the advantages of being in a small environment, I think, is that you know people. You'll know the bank, or you'll know so and so. So if push comes to shove and you're looking for a loan, you're already known to that loan officer, right?
Right.
So,
And it doesn't even matter if it's not as small as Montserrat. I think that's why I really wanted to create the Visibility Project, was so that women were actively doing the things to help bring awareness to their work, their remarkable story, and just owning that space, because you'd be surprised the rooms that people are calling your name in that you haven't been in. And I think for me, that's the most important, is that when I hear about it, in fact, just the other day, a friend of mine, she messaged me, she's a fellow author, she's working on this, I think it's Caribbean Heritage Month, and someone else on the team says, oh, you didn't include Nerissa Golden on your list, you know?
yeah.
And so she messages me to say, hey, this person, and I'm like, who is that? I'm like, I don't know this
Yeah.
person. But
Yeah, but no, but it's
plays.
true. It's true. I think that the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. In other words, when your brand carries itself, and so people speak good of you when you're not in the room. I think that's
Right.
really, that brings in business, it brings in financing and a whole slew of other things. So that's really the goal, right?
Yes, it really does. I have to say, a lot of what I have done has come from that. I am not very aggressive about seeking out whether it's fine. If I'm looking for funding, it's literally because I'm working on a project and I need to figure out how to solve it. Other than that, my head is writing something. You know, that's my priority. But when my work speaks for itself, then other people are talking about it. And then by the time they pick up the phone, they're literally saying, hey, Nerissa, we want you to do this. It's not a negotiation and, you know, 50 other people are applying. It's usually, we want you. And I really love that, versus having to be bidding on jobs and things like that.
No, I understand completely. Sure. Because you want to be able to, the best of all possible worlds is when you do a good job for a client and you get repeat business based on that. And then not only that, but they refer you to others.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So tell me a bit about the Visibility Project and how it started and sort of what's the goal?
Well, I recognized over the years that there were things that I was doing that was always having the same result. And also I recognized I was teaching entrepreneurship. I was teaching people how to use social media and things like that, but then they weren't following through. And I thought, what, am I teaching it wrong? You know, and then as I started to really think about what was happening, I recognized, one, we weren't comfortable with telling our story and owning our story, whatever it was. We wanted to have the glossy version of whatever we saw somebody else doing and not recognize that it was in us being authentic and being clear on why we wanted to do something that was going to make it easier for us to sell. In fact, you don't have to sell if you recognize that literally what you are called to do is a service that is necessary. So last year, I challenged myself, and then I created this challenge called the Visibility Challenge, and literally brought over 30 people from across the region and the world, actually, to participate in a month-long visibility course with me, where I taught them these principles that I've created, these 5 principles, and just to see what would happen in that process. So it was very tight, but it was interesting to see how people evolved their story during the month, the issues that we had around value and understanding your value, setting prices, understanding how to talk to the customer, and just being willing to show up, use social media and put your, turn on your camera and go live, because they just weren't comfortable with being seen. And so that has actually, I've spent the rest of the year kind of like tweaking the program. I'm now writing a book based on that process. And hopefully later this year, they haven't launched it yet, so I can't say anything, but there's going to be an event coming up where I'll be able to do this regionally as well. And also just privately teach the visibility project to people. So I'm literally going to be, in fact, next month, there are a couple of clients starting with me in an incubator to really help them go from, invisible to visible within 3 months.
So you've come up with 5 principles.
Yes.
Can you talk about them now, or that's too?
Sure.
You're jumping the gun.
I hope I can remember the 5 in the order. But the first one is introduce, inform, innovate, influence, and the last one is missing me.
I'm sure it'll come back after we close
Yes.
the interview. But
Of
so it's
course it
5.
does.
They're all eyes.
Yes, they're all eyes.
That's great. So we'll have to talk after this offline.
Impact is the last one. The last one is impact.
We'll have
Yes.
to talk on offline about this.
Yes, for sure.
Because I already sense a collaboration brewing here.
Yes, but for me, it's the culmination of all the things I've been doing, learning to understand what's happening in the media, what hasn't changed, what has changed. And there are some core values that have remained the same even before they were there before social. They'll probably be there after social, or whatever social we're using now is no longer relevant. So these are the tools that I'm teaching them, and then they can just transfer them to whichever environment they want to use them in, because they're literally what I have used to build the career and the life that I have had, starting with nothing and just being able to do that, and now being at the point where I can have the impact that I want to have in the areas that I want to have it.
That's great. So so this is going to be a standing incubator virtually, a program running forward, or you're going to just rely on the book to drive sort of work with individual clients? How do you envision this?
I am debating that, because we talked about the fact that the storytelling and the content creation is really important. So I am hoping the book is going to be a really good support, because I'm going to give away all the secrets in the book so people can actually follow the book step by step. And then the incubator are for those that actually, if they really want to have additional help to do it, then I'm willing to do that. So it'll be a bit more pricey than the book, but it's for people and women especially who want that additional support to build out all the content and to really ensure that they do that. Because I have found that sometimes it's just about time. We can do it all ourselves, but when you go into an incubator or you hire a coach, it's basically saying, I could do this by myself, but I really want the support that I can go from A to Z, knowing that I'm doing it right, the first time, and not trial and error.
Or you could do, if you don't want to do an incubator based on your other projects, you might want to do a series of workshops, like twice a year you run a workshop around the book. So it gives you a little bit more space to do other things. But I think it's a great idea. And it's certainly needed, because, in my conversations around the region, and even here in the US, women entrepreneurs are challenged along a lot of different avenues. And one of them is just knowing how to position themselves and their company credibly in the market, and what are the tools to do that. And even though, to you and I, they're obvious, for a lot of people, they're not. And so this is really filling a need, I think.
Yeah, I took it for granted for a long time. I thought it was nothing special until I came across a couple of other books and realized, but this is my model. And that other people were doing the same thing, and they had actually, formalized it and everything. And I thought, hey, this is time that you do this, because this is literally what you have been doing over and over again. So now let's just give it a name and create a whole framework around it. So that was fun to do. And it's been fun to watch the women go through their process and just see them being elevated as they go.
Well, I think it's good to sort of contextualize it as well, because I'm sure the other books are more maybe US based or something, even though the issues are the same in a way. When you're dealing with smaller environments and different cultures and so on, it's great to contextualize it, even though some of the lessons might be the same.
Absolutely. And that for me is very important, is that I do everything from a Caribbean context, because I do understand the mindset that often drives us, and that it's about how do I help you get over that barrier? How do I help you see that actually your space is not a limitation? You've made it a limitation. And so now let's show you that you actually have a story that's bigger than St. Kitts, bigger than Jamaica. And you have value to offer the world. You know, and we not get intimidated by our location and our size, because that's often, you know, one of the biggest challenges to get over for us. But I try. I think coming home to Montserrat has probably helped me work on that a lot more, because it's so small. And then when I go to Jamaica or I go to Trinidad and they're saying, "Oh, our market is so small," and I'm like, "Really? Let me show you small."
Yeah,
but it really helps,
right? Yeah. If you use technology, then it doesn't matter where you are.
Absolutely,
You know,
absolutely.
doesn't really matter
And
where you are.
that's also a lot of people are intimidated by that. And also the sense of, especially when it comes around financing now, then we say, okay, well, I can't afford to buy a good camera. I can't afford lights and all these things. And I'm like, you don't, what do you have? Because when I started, I literally borrowed everything, the laptop, the internet, I had zero.
That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
Because folks hold themselves back because they can't buy the new laptop, or they can't buy so and so, they don't have the equipment to record and all of this kind of thing. Start with your phone.
Absolutely.
Or borrow from somebody.
Yes.
Right.
I did a lot of that. I did a lot of that. Whether it's go to the library and use their free internet for, you know, a few hours, whatever it takes to get it done, because it's important to you. You can get it done, and then the money will come.
So creativity
essential.
is key.
Yeah.
So what are we're sort of winding down now. What are some of the gems of advice that you would want to share based on your journey so far? I know we've touched on some of them, but could you kind of just tie it up in a bow neatly for me, so that we have a sense of what your message is today?
You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in the thing that you are called to do. And it may simply be, you're a great cook. You know, you don't have to aspire to be wearing a suit and tie. Whatever it is you feel that you're called to do, know that that's what it is, and that you can serve the space that you're in. You can also go bigger. I think adaptability is critical, and it's something that we take for granted, especially as Caribbean people. And you can actually use adaptability to help you expand yourself into other spaces. So you got to be adaptable, and then build relationships. Like I said, if you just, you know, get up every day just wanting to serve other people, that eventually is going to return to you in whatever way you need. So that's why I get up every day, to see how can I be a blessing to other people, and then it just takes care of everything else. Then I'm not worried about myself, what I'm missing, what hasn't worked. Staying in that space of service and creativity, then that attracts everything you need after that. And just being brave. And my number one thing is, don't ask permission.
Ask for forgiveness if necessary.
We don't need to ask permission. Just do it.
Just do it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's really good advice. That's sort of coming back to my theme, which is financing. I think it's very important. The whole issue of creativity is important. I mean, I think you've been very creative in not having to go to a bank and so on, but you basically use other people's money, but not in the way we think. Right. You know, through sponsorships and so on. I think that's a very important approach. I mean, so far we've looked at different kinds of ways of raising money, and I think it's interesting to expose women to the gamut of what's available, because you know, your business is different, and you know, what might be a solution for me might not be a solution for you. So the series is trying to sort of highlight the different ways that dynamic women such as Nerissa have funded their business. Right?
I've totally been enjoying the series. I just watched the one on the franchising out of Barbados. I thought that was brilliant. I love it.
You know, what I want to do is shine a light on women who are dynamic in their space. They might not be known by the world, but I want to shine a light on them, because folks such as you who are really doing good work in your space need to be celebrated. And I wanted to do that. And I wanted to have you share your story to inspire others who hopefully will watch the series.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Nerissa. I think your name, Nerissa Golden, is perfect for a writer. It really,
Yes.
it is perfect. So thanks again for joining me today. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And as you know, we'll be talking offline, brainstorming about possibilities. And I wish you the best of luck with this new venture, the Visibility Project. I think it fills a need in the Caribbean. There are not enough support systems in place for women entrepreneurs. And I think this will be a good value added. So much appreciated. All the best. And we'll be talking.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Vincent.